Hello, I'm Chloe. I decided to write my paper about the movie Ratatouille and different concepts that I found while I was watching the movie. I also found a couple of art journal articles to go along with the concepts that I decided to talk about. And I felt like most of the concepts that I found, I could find quite a few examples of in the movie. There's one concept that I chose that there were definitely a few examples, but there was one like major example that I feel like everybody got from watching the movie. So, to start off, the first concept that I chose to talk about was the concept of channel or channeling. Now, I feel like if you've ever watched the movie Ratatouille, so I guess to start, if you haven't watched the movie Ratatouille, I highly recommend, but it's a story about this young rat who is in love with everything culinary. And there's this crazy scene that happens where his colony of rats have to move out of where they are, and he finds himself on the outside of his like culinary idol's like namesake restaurant. That's where like the plot starts. So with the channeling, the example that I came across, or I guess the main point or main example of channeling, is Remy, the rat, uses Linguini, which is like the new guy in the kitchen that nobody takes seriously. He uses Linguini to make his own dishes. And the way that he uses him is he's on top of his head. He realizes that if he pulls strands of hair, he is able to like control him like a puppet. So to get his like cooking ability through Linguini, through channeling. That's just, I felt like that was the main example when it came to channeling or channel in the movie. The second concept that I chose to talk about was assertiveness. And I found multiple examples of assertiveness. And the one main one that I'd like to touch on is there's a female chef in the kitchen, and she is like boss lady. She's like, I meant to be in this kitchen. I do good work. You need to take me seriously. And more power to her. I am not assertive like that, but she's one of my favorite characters in the movie. So that's just an example of assertiveness. The last concept that I felt like I saw the most of was stereotyping. This is probably the example that I found, or the concept I found the most examples of in the movie. And I feel like there's three main ones, I would say. One, Remy being a rat. Stereotype, ew, rat, rodent, gross. Obviously you don't know how to cook. And if you've watched the movie, you know he proves that he does not fall into that stereotype. Second stereotype would be the way that they look at Colette, the female in the kitchen, just because she's female in a more male-dominated area. And then the third stereotype that I feel was also probably the most, other than Remy being a rat, was the way that they looked at Linguini. Like, he was like, started off as the garbage boy, like accidentally came into this with Remy, made some good dishes. But they looked at him like, oh, he's clumsy, he has no idea what he's doing, he's just the garbage boy. And with he and Remy together, like, they made good work. He, overcame that stereotype. And the sources that I found to go along with all of these examples kind of just talked more in depth about what each of those stereotype was. There was one source that I actually found multiple articles on that I feel it had a very broad spectrum in it like was in parts, and each part had like, this is what we're talking about here's like what it means, these are the examples. If you are more interested in those, I could share them, but that is pretty much like a summary of my paper and the 3 concepts that I decided to talk about.